My name is Ivan Marx. The film you're about to see is authentic. The Eskimos call the subject of my story Bushman. The Colville Indians of upstate Washington call him Sasquatch. The Hoopas of Northern California call him Oh-Mah. But right now, let's just call him Bigfoot.
Then a movement in the woods. The sun hadn't come up yet. It was hard to make out what I'd seen at first. There he was. Bigfoot, standing no more than 100 yards from my blind. I began to shake all over. I could barely keep hold of my camera. He was awesome. Then, behind me, another one. Smaller, possibly younger. How many of them were there? Was I surrounded? They were the most extraordinary creatures I'd ever seen. I now knew why the Eskimos called Bigfoot the king of the animals. The older, larger one was 7 feet tall, 450 to 500 pounds. His domed head and long dark hair, just like the other creatures I'd seen. His odor was overwhelming. The same thick, musky scent that first led me to Bigfoot so long ago. The young one was no more than 5.5 feet tall, 250 pounds. If my guess was right, probably on its first trip away from its northern breeding grounds. He'd probably never seen a man before. If he saw me, he could panic and attack. Then I looked around and realized the other animals were carrying on normally. If danger was around, they would have fled. Just as the Eskimos had said, Bigfoot is a benevolent creature. It doesn't even attack feed on other animals. It seems to eat only vegetation or sometimes fish. Here it was before me, pulling up the tender swamp grass with its hands. Remarkable huge hands that seemed capable of grasping, scooping up drinking water, and splashing to rid itself of parasites. I'd done it. Here I was again with Bigfoot. Unchallengeable proof my theory had worked. It is a migratory animal, and I now have the documentation of its habits I needed. Now we can begin to understand the place this creature holds in nature. A raccoon came out to start his day's hunting. I knew the nocturnal Bigfoot would soon return to the cover of the forest. I once again said goodbye to this mysterious creature that has somehow outlived its natural role, endured the tests of time, now left to wander the land elusively with a strange will to survive. Oh, I still have plenty of questions, and I'll continue my search for the answers now. But I assure you, I'll no longer get so caught up in the problems of my research that I'll lose touch with the wonders it reveals. Suddenly, the pilot whipped around. There he was, a young Bigfoot, frozen like a tree. We raced back to the river, but he slipped away. Seeing the young Bigfoot confirmed my theory. I could now roughly predict the creature's movements. I saw it. A deformed version of the track I'd seen so often. There it was. Finally, face to face with Bigfoot. Here was the domed head, just as others had described it. The thick, dark fur to protect it from extremes of weather and allow it to pass unnoticed in the night. I saw it, photographed it, but scientists challenged my film. Yet it stood up under every conceivable test. Some revealed rugged terrain as the cause of the skinned heels, polio as the cause of the limp. But my documented evidence wasn't good enough for the experts. Experts who still asked, how could such a creature survive? Where does it live? Show us its remains. What does it eat? Experts who challenged my word but claimed credit for my film and profited by it on lecture circuits. Well, I didn't care for these people. But I was haunted by their questions. I came to a bridge, and there beside it, another track. Fresh. Nauseating, musky odor made it difficult to breathe. But I had to find out what I'd seen. Bigfoot. I'd seen Bigfoot. Now I wanted to find out everything I could about Bigfoot. I advertised for any information or leads. You can't believe the number of stories people had to tell. My friends laughed at them all. Okay, I'd laugh too. But things were different now. I had to figure out what was fact and what was fiction. There were reports of creatures 12 feet tall, 800 pounds, that prowled on 2 feet. Now that's absurd, scientifically impossible. No creature that size or weight could even stand upright. And as for tracks, you can't imagine the number of kids I found running around the woods making plywood fakes. Tales of hunters being ripped apart, campers kidnapped and never heard of again. But 4 features, all the reports shared, were the dark hair, the domed head, the large footprints, and the glowing red eyes. He took me to what Indians called the land of petrified wood. There, carved in rock, were drawings of a creature with big hands and big feet, exactly as I had heard Bigfoot described. The drawings were 700 years old. They told how creatures the Indians called stickmen had come in the night and stolen the Indian children. The Indians abandoned the village in fear. But there was a statue carved in redwood. Its image was based on hundreds of sightings collected over the years. And it was exactly like the creature I had seen myself. And I found these tracks. Now, they look much like human footprints, but they were 18 inches long, 6.5 across the ball of the foot, 5.5 at the heel. They were the hugest I'd ever seen. The tracks were so deep, they had to have been made by at least a 500-pound animal. And the hair, I couldn't identify it. The toe prints were spread around small rocks and dug into the earth, showing whatever made them could cover pretty rugged country. And the stride was enormous, 52 inches in length. Man's only 30. They were fakes. Somebody would have had to drag a pretty big machine over pretty rough country to make them, and they would have left their own tracks. I saw where a creature had stumbled. There was a handprint, but no sign of claws. They were so manlike. I was mystified, so I made plaster casts and sent them with the hair to a lab for analysis. I was called to chase a renegade bear up north. This time, I wasn't so eager to return to the mountains. Tests had shown the hair samples and tracks couldn't be matched with any known animal. I was uncomfortable. The animals were even acting strange. I soon found out why. I found the bear I was looking for, but not in the condition I expected. Another track, just as I'd seen on the mountain. And there, between its teeth, the hair. I was astounded. A 600-pound bear that had stood 8 feet tall, lying by the side of the creek with its neck broken. The creature's tracks disappeared at the edge of a beaver swamp. I wanted the satisfaction of bringing back unchallengeable proof. Still, where to begin? I found several other creatures had passed through the area, all heading north. Could Bigfoot be a migratory animal? I plotted all the reliable reports. actually seemed to be a migratory pattern extended over thousands of miles. If this were true, I'd have some means of predicting the creature's movements and a good chance to find some answers to my questions. Bigfoot always stayed in very rocky mountains and isolated terrain. The greatest number of sightings, and the only ones of the Bigfoot young, were in summer, above the Arctic Circle. Could that be where Bigfoot migrated to breed? If I move rapidly, I might find a clue before season's end. Peg and I found the people up north different. They encouraged me, took my search seriously. Like the lumberjacks, mountain men, like myself. The first into the midst of the wilderness, which meant first with stories of Bigfoot. Most of their sightings came at the time of year I'd anticipated. They were sure when Bigfoot passed because strange happenings followed in a nearby valley. Lying in the shadow of Bigfoot, etched in rock 26 feet high, and the wolf, his only known traveling companion. What went on in this valley Bigfoot passed through went against all the natural laws of survival. And the rock formations, too massive to have been shaped by man, presented another, totally unexplainable, natural phenomena. Sure enough, an old miner's story told how the glaciers up there were the burial grounds of the Bigfoot. That would explain why there were no remains. The creatures carried their dead over thousands of miles just to deposit them in crevices that open up in the spring thaw. Can you imagine? Well, traveling had been tough, so we treated ourselves to the fanciest hotel in town. There, Yukon Frida. Her sketches were based on recent sightings and descriptions of Bigfoot from that very area. Or purchase fish from the Eskimos. I knew I could get my answers from these people, 'cause stories of Bigfoot were as plentiful as the food. One man told of the strange day his mother died. In a cabin like this, that night they heard a soft scratch at the door. There was Bigfoot, chanting in a strange tongue. Everyone was terrified. Voice of Bigfoot. They must abandon their homes, which they did. The next day, an ice floe changed the river, and waters now flow where the village once stood. I asked to see this area, hoping for a sign of Bigfoot. The man said, if you wish to see the king of the animals, he breeds in the mating grounds of the Alaskan moose. He told a tale about a trapper who killed a creature in the early 40s, bringing the wrath of Bigfoot down upon his people. Bigfoot was punishing us for bringing it sorrow. But then, the good white light rose from the north to protect us from the red wrath of its grieving brothers. If you travel the river, you may see him, and if you do, he will bring you luck. Then the native gasped, pointing to a bird soaring above us, the legendary white raven. The fisherman said, Bigfoot smiles upon you. You will bring word of him to the people below. My mind was reeling. the next village, the natives were waiting for us. They had heard about the white raven and wanted to show us their secret, sacred figure. Here it was again. They told us how Bigfoot was their friend. Their friend? How did they think such a violent creature could be their friend? They told how Bigfoot always carried the bodies of men killed or lost in the Arctic winter to the edge of the nearest village to be buried by their own kind. When I asked where I could make contact with their friend, they said, in the land of shining eyes. But they warned me not to violate Bigfoot's domain. I reminded them of the white raven, so they taught me a chant to sing on the night of the full moon and promised I would see the glowing eyes of Bigfoot. Well, I wasn't going to have a thing to do with any chanting. So I set up walkie-talkies 300 yards from the tent to monitor any movements on the tundra during the night. At the first sound, I'd have a jump on the creature. Then the wait. The land was lush with vegetation, a perfect feeding ground. Berries, lichen, gnats, bugs, millions of fish. Not just a land of ice and snow. I understood why Bigfoot and so many animals flocked to the Arctic to breed and raise their young. My transmitter had been thrown 15 feet. And the tundra held no tracks. Days passed. I felt like a fool, but now I'd go to any ends to conjure up the creature. Soon Peg saw what she thought were two car lights approaching. I was caught in the darkness, but Peg guided me toward the lights. I had to find out what it was. Then we realized they were the shining eyes. This time, I couldn't let Bigfoot escape. But dawn broke, and it disappeared behind a rainbow. I got there early and planned to stay as long as I could. I used every trick I learned over my years as a trapper and carefully covered my scent with ammonia.